Hey, you guys, welcome back to Cali Girl Live. I got a special guest today, you guys. My friend Monte came here to talk to us about expat life in Mexico. So, with no further ado, Monte, kick it off. Tell me who you are, where you're from, and what landed you in Mexico.
Thank you, Callie, for having me on the session today. I really appreciate that. And we've been or I've been in Mexico for 6 years now. I am from Atlanta. I am ATL through and through. So when you talk about the South, that's me. I grew up in Atlanta. I grew up in College Park. For those people that really know, they know. You know what I'm saying? And so went to high school there, middle school, and Morehouse. Met my wife there. We are a spell house couple, so we are really Atlanta. Like she is originally from Atlanta, but we are Atlanta. And for us, this journey or this chapter of life is really kind of the act three, as I would call it, for my family. We have older kids, adult kids, and when they got out of the house, went to college, we bounced with our baby girl, which was our 3-year-old at the time. We bounced to Mexico. So that's a little bit about us. We are entrepreneurs. We've been entrepreneurs for many years now, and that translated well into what we do here in Mexico.
Nice. So you came as a couple, and then the small baby, and then your adult kids are not living in Mexico.
No, all of my adult kids are still in Atlanta. So we have 28, 26, and 24-year-old kids, or adults, I should say, and then we have a 9-year-old who has been with us here in Mexico for the last 6 years. So she's been, 2/3 of her life has been here in Mexico. And if you've seen the latest video that I did on my channel, I produced this weekend, it's about our 6-year journey. And I talked about, the fact that she moved here when she was a baby, when she was 3, fully bilingual. And so she is fully bicultural at this point. And it's been amazing. It's been such a blessing.
Yeah, so you guys, he said 26, 24 and something. He looks 26, 24 and something. So is it the water? What's going on? Like, we look so good forever. You look super young. So I would
Thank you. It's the vitamin D.
yes, and that melanin that we get, yes. So speaking of melanin, like one of the things, like I think I was telling you that I did a 15-month digital nomad stay in Panama. And so one of the things I really liked about Panama was like everybody's melanated. Well, maybe not everyone, but some form of being melanated is like the overtaking amount of the citizens. And so I felt so blended in. Yes. How's that in Mexico?
It's the same. It's a brown society, right? So, everybody here is brown. No one's checking for you because you're African American or whatever you are, right? They don't care that you are darker or lighter or whatever. It just doesn't matter. I think most people assume I'm Cuban when they first see me, but no one's checking. No one's like making any assumptions. The only time that really comes into play is if they really go hard on Spanish, and I'm like, can you slow down, please? So that's where the disconnect happens. And then they say, where are you from? Like, okay, yeah, you're from the States. So that's where, it really becomes a thing, but it's never an issue here. And I agree with you. In Panama, I was super pleasantly surprised at just how easy it was to blend in Panama. I was there in January, and you jump off the plane and everybody is every shade under the sun. And, it's just not a thing. No one's checking for you because you're brown or what have you. So it's a very freeing experience.
Definitely. I would second that motion for sure. Like I definitely have another trip that I need to take back there maybe for a couple months and knock out some more things on my bucket list. But yeah, Mexico's on my radar though. That's why I ran into you and you popped up on my news feeds. And so I subscribed and it was a good thing. So, hablas español?
Sí.
Okay, bueno, okay. That's what's up. So can we just get into that really quick? Because I feel like that's something that comes up often. People, especially Black expats, the one thing is most of them don't speak Spanish. I was fortunate to have some Spanish under my belt. And so I built it a little bit in Panama, although I'm not fluent. But how is that getting around in Mexico? First, can you tell me what part of Mexico you reside in?
Yeah, because Mexico's a huge country, right?
Yeah.
And it's as big as, the United States. 122 million people, 32 states, I believe. It is huge, right? And I live in the southern part of Mexico, or what they consider the south of Mexico, which is the Yucatan Peninsula. So if you think about Cancun, we are 3 hours west of Cancun in the Yucatan state in the city of Merida. So that is, that's where I am right now. And the beautiful thing about this location is it's 25 minutes from the Gulf Coast, from my house. So I could be on the beach any day for lunch or whatever, right? It's really close. But it's a major city. It is the largest city in the south of Mexico. So this is a city of 1.2 million people now. It was just under a million when I moved here, and now there's 200,000 more people, it seems, in the last couple of years. But this city is popping, and they have all the services that you would expect, or that you would be familiar with as a resident of the United States. So there's malls, there's what most people are surprised. We have a Church's Chicken, we have a Popeye, or we have a Popeye's coming, right? So things that are important to me. We have those types of things here in Merida, but not in addition, there's just a bunch of franchises and chain restaurants and things of that nature as well, and as well as local cuisine. The local cuisine here is very, very different from the rest of Mexico. So I think I was telling you earlier that the main diet staples are turkeys or pigs or pork, right? And so one of the most famous dishes here is a dish called 𝐿𝐮𝐬𝐫𝐽𝐿. So it is not very vegan friendly, although there are tons of vegan restaurants, and I have a lot of vegan friends here. So
Okay.
it's an international city. It's just a little different than the rest of Mexico. It has its kind of its own culture. But the culture here is actually built on the Mayan culture. So there are a lot of Mayans that are still here. Like every day you see, there's in fact the streets or the newspapers or the radio announcements, all of that is in Spanish and in Mayan.
Wow. So Mayan is another language that's spoken there, huh?
Oh yeah, if you saw Black Panther, the last Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, when they came to the Yucatan, that was real. That was like
Right.
they were actually speaking Spanish on the beach, but 𝐾𝐿⁵ he spoke Mayan to his people under the water. So, and that's a real thing. That is like a real language. In fact, that actor is from 𝐾𝐿⁵, which is the next state over.
Okay. Wow. I didn't know I was getting some real life history up in here too. That's what I'm talking about, Monty. So Spanish is prevalent, or are you able to get along with English there?
Yeah, so that's a great distinction. Most people that say they visited Mexico have been to Quintana Roo, which is Cancun, Playa del Carmen, Tulum, those areas, right? And of course, over there, everyone's there to service tourism. And most of the folks there are going to speak multiple languages. They're going to speak English and Spanish. So if you're in that part of the world, you can get by without speaking Spanish if you had to. This, I tell people in the Yucatan, this is real Mexico. So you need to learn Spanish and you need to know Spanish to have an enhanced experience. Yes, you can get around with Google Translate, but being able to navigate the world without having to pull out your phone and a translator and things of that nature is super important. So understanding and being able to speak Spanish here is critical. And one of the things that I did before we ever moved here was in June of 2019. I came in for 3 weeks and I took intensive immersion Spanish classes. So the intensive part is 4 hours a day, 5 days a week, and I did that for 3 weeks straight. Brain was fried, but it really was the jump start that I needed to know that I could live here without my wife, you know, constantly translating and doing things for me. My wife is from Atlanta. She went to Georgia State, minored in Spanish, and then went back and got a degree in Spanish. So she is a Spanish teacher, but I needed to know that I can maneuver without having to depend on her speaking for me all the time.
Okay. And so does she teach Spanish virtually?
She teaches English virtually, believe it or not, and she teaches Spanish in person to some of us expats that are here.
Okay.
So now I'm back in her Spanish class, and I talk about this in my video that I produced this past week, my 6 years living here. How one of the things that I wish I would have done. So when we moved here, I was taking those intensive classes. I continued with those intensive immersion classes. And I did that for probably the first year and a half that we were here. So I took a total of about 16 to 18 weeks of intensive immersion Spanish classes. Um, but at some point, I felt like I was able to communicate. And so I stopped going to class. I stopped taking classes and I plateaued, right? So for a year, I didn't take any classes. I tried to do the online thing and that just didn't work out for me. Um, taking classes with like folks in Colombia or folks in Mexico, and it just didn't work out for me. I needed more, I guess, face to face and relationships. And so once my wife's class got to the same level where I plateaued, because I was ahead of them for a while, but once they caught up with me, then I just jumped back into her class. And so now twice a week I take Spanish class 1 hour a day, Mondays and Wednesdays here at my house.
Oh, tu esposa habla español, no necesitas clases.
No, mi esposa es una maestra, pero es difícil para enseñarme porque mi esposa por 31 años.
Oh, okay, I get it. That's cool. So in the house, do you all speak Spanish? Does she speak Spanish
No,
to your daughter?
we all speak English.
Okay.
It's like it's very rare. My daughter is fully bilingual. Her first language was Spanish, even before we moved here because we knew we had this plan to move here, and so it was important that she be prepared. All of her cartoons early on were, Coco, what is it, Coco Melon, and all of the things that the kids watch here. She was watching that stuff in Spanish when she was a toddler. So when she moved here, she was already speaking Spanish at a 3-year-old level. And it was really having a nanny from here that, her accent is completely, you could check in completely, she's completely fluent.
That's what's up. That brings me to my next question. So, what made you and your wife choose this particular region, Mexico in general?
We first came to Merida 20, let's see, 21 years ago on a Carnival cruise ship. So it was our very first cruise. We cruised with the kids. We took Carnival because they were the ones that had the Fun Ship Freddy or the kids program on board. And one of the stops, we ended up in Progreso, which I didn't realize it was a separate city. I thought it was actually Merida because one of the ports were closed. I believe Cozumel was closed. And so they just circled around the peninsula and came to Progreso as one of the stops. So it wasn't originally on the itinerary, but we ended up there. And when we got off the boat, we did a city tour of Merida. And, we didn't think much of it. It was a great day, had a good experience. I have pictures of my oldest daughter when she was 3 sitting on my lap in the park with feeding pigeons. And, it was a really cool experience. Fast forward to, 20 or 18 years later, and my church is doing a mission trip and they're coming to this part of the country. They're coming to the Yucatan. And so we decided to join that mission trip. And while we were here, the first time we was like, this is pretty cool. The next year we came back, we was like, you know what, let's extend the trip and do an exploratory trip. But the seed to move to Mexico was really planted while my wife was studying Spanish at Georgia State. She got the opportunity to study abroad with our older kids. So she, was a part of a study abroad program. She got to take my older kids with her because they had been coming to class with her. She was an older student. And so she had to bring the kids because I was traveling a lot. So she would take the kids to class. The professor knew the kids. They knew how well behaved they were. And so when she got an opportunity to study abroad, she was able to take the kids and they lived with the host family who became our adopted Mexican family. And so we were their first family that they ever hosted. And we fell in love with them. They were an older couple then, and now they're up in the age now. But we really fell in love with them. They fell in love with us, and it was just based on that love that put Mexico on the map for us. But Merida became an option because Guadalajara was our first choice. Merida became an option once we realized it had everything that Guadalajara offered, and it had a beach. Whereas Guadalajara, the beach is 5 hours away, 5.5 hours away.
Dude, do you know the Latin culture just across the board? I feel like that's just the story no matter where you go. It's I don't know if it's our PTSD coming from the United States, but it's just so much love. I felt so at home in Panama. I went solo and single, I didn't know anyone. And I just felt so embraced, not even just the I kind of like immersed myself. So I go after the locals because I wanted to expand my Spanish. And so I have so
Sure.
many friends there and I just feel the love. Like, and when you say that, it makes you feel excited. Like that is across the board with the Latin countries, I feel like.
Family is everything here, right? And that is one of the things we don't really, we see it when we see other Latinos in the United States, but when you actually experience it, it's a whole different thing. And so that's one of the reasons we wanted to move to Latin America, just because we were raising a young child. We were starting over, having raised three adults. And so we wanted to make sure that we gave her the best opportunity to experience the world and be bicultural.
Oh, she's meant for greatness for sure. That's why she got to do this whole little kid thing, like without her other siblings. I'm
Sure.
excited to see what she turns into.
Me too.
Yeah. So also, like, what's the cost affordability there? Was that a factor in considering Mexico?
So it wasn't the primary factor for us. We were pretty fortunate in the States with, as I said, we were entrepreneurs, we owned businesses. I retired super early. And so it was not the main consideration for us, but it is way more affordable here than it is obviously in the States and other places. And what surprised me about Panama is how food was relatively cheaper in Panama than it is here. But I think other things like housing was way more expensive in Panama. So I'll give you an example. We have the house that we're currently in is a four-bedroom, six-bath house, probably about 3,500 square feet. My wife has an office, I have an office, and we have a garden, et cetera, and a pool. We have a gardener, we have a housekeeper that comes twice a week, and we have a pool person that comes. And our budget for all of that is around $2,100 a month. So, and that's just rent and things of that nature. But if you add in food and what have you, it's probably less than $2,500.
Yeah, Panama skyrocketed fairly quickly because, yeah, even from the time I started looking to the time I got there, it had went up, and then even the time I was living there to the time I left, it's like, yeah, I think the influx of not just Americans, but just non-Panama people, expats. I mean, expats is a cool name, but really we're foreigners, immigrants coming into their
Immigrants.
country. So it's sort of driving up
There's not
the,
an office of the expat services. There's an immigrant.
yeah, right? Yeah, immigration. It's, yeah, it's a reality too. I feel like we're entitled here. And so we didn't, people don't want to be called, but I was like, shoot, I'm an immigrant. Like I'm over here, trying to kick it with them. So let me just adapt and like learn and flow with how they get down, not just plop down. I always had like quorums with people running around acting like that. Like, hey, go back to the US if you're not trying to like be loving and acclimate to their culture, like why come here?
Yeah, that's one of the things that I realized. I was 40. Let's see, I guess I was 43 or 44 when we moved here, and just they've been doing things for 44 years their way, and so it wasn't didn't make it wrong, didn't make it right, but whatever the way is, they've been getting it done for 44 years, every single process, right? And so who am I to come here and say, oh, this is the wrong way or this is the right way to do things? It's just different. And it's very different, but it's up to you to learn. And so that's really the genesis of Exit Plans and why I started the blog, is because I wanted people to understand that every single day there's going to be challenges, right? And one of the things that the first couple of years, you're in a season of growth, whether it's learning the language, whether it's adapting to the culture, whatever, you're in a season of growth. You're going to be stretched in every single possible way and you have to either grow through it or bounce, right? Because if you can't adjust, you're not going to make it here. So we've seen a lot of people that move here for, some amount of time. And that's probably the hardest thing, is that a lot of immigrants leave. They're like, oh, I was here for a while, and then they bounce. And so you get used to people, and you meet some really dope people, but then their journey isn't to be here long term. So, it's definitely going to stretch you. You definitely have to adjust to the way things are done wherever you are. And you are an immigrant, just like, and not only are you an immigrant, if you don't speak or read and write in Spanish, you're an illiterate immigrant, right?
Right.
So, and you don't think about that, right? You can't like sign your name. You can't read a piece of paper. You can't tell somebody you need help, or you can't do all of these things that you're used to doing. So even that will stretch you, just from a language perspective. That'll stretch you as well.
That's what's up. Yeah. So people like me have their eye on other places. I'm a digital nomad and I have a whole bucket list. So Mexico is one of the destinations. Give us some insights on like this visa process, citizenship. Like, how does this work in Mexico?
Yeah, so the residency process, and that's really where you should start, right? Everything honestly starts with financials. And one of the things that's happening since I've been here in 2019 to 2025 is that the amount that you need to qualify for residency is skyrocketing. It's gone from, I don't even remember what it was in 2019. We were fortunate enough to be able to get permanent residency right off the bat. So I didn't have to go through the process year after year. I just went through it once and that was that. But today, you need over $4,200, and this is as of November. Most consulates, you start the process outside of Mexico in a U.S. or in a Mexican consulate in the states or wherever you are, wherever there's a Mexican consulate. And today, you need over 4,200 US dollars net per month as a working person, not as a retired person. If you're using investment accounts, you have to show, I think it's $70,000 or $69,000 for a 12-month period in your bank account, right? So there's all of these measurements, but it all starts with your finances in order to be able to qualify for residency. And after 2019, actually, in the beginning of 2020, they stopped. No matter what your age, if you're not of a retirement age or you haven't retired from like the military or civil service, like police officers, those types of folks, then you're going to get temporary residency initially. They won't even give you permanent residency if you're not of a retirement age. And so the process starts with a 1 year. You started outside of the country, you get a 1 year visa, temporary residency visa. After that 1 year, you can renew for 3 more years, and those 3 years allow you to, or during those 3 years, after that third year, you can become, after the fourth year, at the end of that, you can become permanent. You can go from temporary to permanent residency. And the difference between the two is the main difference is whether you can drive or bring a car. That's one of the main differences between temporary and permanent. Permanent residents cannot import a car or bring a car in. You have to buy a car here, and then you don't have to keep going through that process after year one, year three, etc.
Okay. So, can I? How long can I stay on my U.S. visa? I mean, I'm sorry, on my U.S. passport.
If you are not a resident, if you don't have residency, they can give you up to 108 days. But here's the thing, they've been cracking down on even that. So it's 180 days in a calendar year, right? So if you, let's say you come for, the first time you've been here for a week on vacation. Well, the next time you come, they may say, well, how long do you plan to be here? And if you tell them 6 months or 3 months or whatever, the custom or the immigration agent at that time can stamp your thing and be like 2 weeks. That's how long you're going to be here. So, yeah, so they've definitely cracked down, and it's now all a digital system. Because before, people would live here for years and just make border runs. Every 6 months or so, they would just cross the border and come back into the country, and that was sufficient. But now everything is digital, so they know exactly when you left and when you arrived. And if you don't qualify financially for a residency, you'll find it difficult to negotiate business. So you can't rent a house. Some people won't rent to you, things of that nature. So you'll be doing things like Airbnbs or, just it becomes a little bit more difficult. You can't open a bank account.
Do you think that the abrupt change has to do with our political climate change from the U.S.?
Definitely, there's been some changes because of that. So there used to be a program that was kind of like an amnesty program where if you were here, say on a month visa, and you overstayed, then you could easily move into a 4 year temporary residency program. That all ended with the current administration. They cut that out really quick. So now it's becoming even more stricter because Mexicans are being very sensitive to gentrification. You hear that word thrown out a lot. You guys are, coming in, you're raising prices, and so that's not necessarily the case. The Yucatan in particular is very sought after by other Mexicans because it is one of the safest places in North America to live. right? And so it's sought out by people from Mexico City, from Guadalajara, from all over Mexico to move here. Not to mention that uh, in those other places, it's more expensive. So it's more expensive in Mexico City. So you have economic uh, foreigners that move here from within Mexico. You also have people that are moving here because of the security. Mexico City is unlike any place that you'll probably find on earth. There's 28 million people in Metro Mexico City, and that's the population of Florida and the city. Um, so it's a massive place, right? It is. There's probably, I'm sure there's way more people. I looked at Panama. I think there was like 4 or 5 million people in Panama. And you're talking about Mexico City has 28 million in Metro Mexico City. It is crazy. It's 2.5 times the size of New York, right? So it's you look at that scale. So you have all this dense population. So those folks are moving here. They're selling their houses or whatever and buying cheaper homes here. So this place is very sought after because of its affordability, its safety are the top two, and then the client. It's people complain about the heat. That's the downside is the heat and mosquitoes. Those are probably the two biggest detractors. If it wasn't for the heat and mosquitoes, there'd be 30 million people or 10 million people in Merida for sure.
What's the heat temperatures average year
Oh, it's hot.
round or seasonal?
It's hot all year long. I just turned the air on. So and it's 134. So it's 90 degrees outside right now.
Wow. Humid?
Yeah, it's humid. It's probably, 85% humidity. Let's see. This is our cool season. So this is winter for us. And it's 90 degrees outside at 1 o'clock.
I thrive in that weather, man. I thrive in that weather. I'm a tropical baby anyway. I was born in the islands. So I don't know, in Panama, some days I was wearing like a hoodie, sweatshirt. People were like, what are you doing? I was like, I love this warm weather. Like,
yeah, Panama was fine for me. I didn't have any issues. I went in January, so the weather was very much the same as it is here.
right. Okay, good.
Yeah, in January, that from October through March, the weather is very, very nice. Like it's amazing, right? High of 90 degrees, low of 70. That's perfect. But once you get to April and May, you start to question your decisions. Because April and May, I know 2 years ago, this past year wasn't so bad, but 2 years ago, we had like 70 straight days of over 100 degrees. So it's brutal, and it rains, and so there's mosquitoes, and it's humid. So
Oh, that's what's up. Let's talk about the racial dynamics, like the expat community, um, Afro Mexican. What's the
yeah, so you don't. There, Mexico, Mexico has a weird history when it comes to race relations. I did a video on this. You should check it out on my channel. It was something about I think I titled it "Gringos Go Home," and it was like, what do Mexicans really think about that? So the way I did that video was I created a question on Reddit and I posted it in the 𝐬𝐻𝐫𝐽 forum. Right? It's like, hey, and I wrote it all in Spanish. I'm like, I'm an immigrant to Merida. I moved here with my family. I'm African American. What do you guys? How did you feel when you see us? Right? Because people are going to tell you, they're going to tell you their real minds, and they won't tell you in person, but they will tell you online. All the trolls come out online, right? And so I took the responses that I got. I used AI, ChatGPT, to correlate all that data and to really make sense of some of the themes. So it's a really good video. And the interesting thing is they will tell you that they are not racist. Uh, that's the overwhelming thing. They are not racist in Mexico. We are not racist. Leave that stuff back in the States. You don't bring your racism here and all of those things, right? So I truly just don't believe they understand what it's like to be African American. And I know they don't, right? So that's the first thing, is that Mexicans will tell you they're not racist. Now, when you really look at it, they're absolutely classist. They're absolutely, they discriminate between darker skinned Mexicans, workers, right, that are out in the sun versus, the Spanish looking Mexicans. So there is that aspect to it in the culture, within the culture. But they will tell you that they're not. As far as racism towards Black people or African Americans, they love us. Like I've heard often in the cab, like, you guys are a little different, right? Than other immigrants that are here. And I just think that we identify. We've all had, or at least I have. My grandmother was a domestic worker, so I understand what that looks like, right? I understand, the respect that we give our people that help us. We give them a different level of respect, I think, than what they're normally treated here by other folks that have grown up in this environment in this culture. So, it is very different, but I don't feel like I experience racism. The Yucatan is very different from other parts of Mexico. If you're not Yucatecan, if you're not from here, you're a foreigner. It doesn't matter where you are from in Mexico. So, and on multiple occasions, the Yucatan has succeeded from Mexico. So
Wow.
it's kind of like, in Spain where you have the Castilian, or not the Catalan area, Barcelona, where it's been its own thing a couple of times. That has happened here in Mexico throughout the history of the country. The Yucatan has been its own thing for like 11 days at one point. I think it's a couple of months for another point, but they've done it on multiple occasions.
Okay. So talk about some of the changes or the adjustments with like bureaucracy, infrastructure.
Oh, it's all that goes back to they've been doing it the way they've been doing it for my entire life, and it's not going to change, right? So you're going through the immigration process, even getting the appointment at a consulate. That's your first test, right? You'll see how difficult that will be. Um, how you have to have everything exactly the way they want it, like double copies of everything. You have to do it exactly the way it's laid out, and it's laid out in Spanish, by the way. It's not laid out in English. So now you have that extra layer of how do I decipher all of this stuff. And once you go through that process, I mean, that is your first introduction. So things are just very different um, than the way they run in the states. Government, anything is bad, right? And you have to deal with the federal government in the states. It's not the most pleasant thing. But dealing with local government and just getting things done like immigration, things of that nature, it's a process, but you have to adjust to it. And that will be your first taste of patience that you will gain living
Okay.
here.
Okay, that's cool. It's good to know. I feel like I'm learning so much. So give me the game safety and like healthcare.
Yeah. So, as I said, this is one of the safest places in all of North America to live. And the reason for that is twofold. One is it's such a different culture, and historically it's been isolated from the rest of the country. But also, this was one of the wealthiest places on earth for many, many years. So there's just a tremendous amount of wealth, and they prioritize security and safety over everything. Like that's the number one public concern. And they have the money to throw at it. So, there are like 4,500 cameras throughout the state. So there's not a place you're going to walk here and not be on camera. And that's the government cameras, but that's not mentioning every home has security cameras. So if something happens, they go and just look at the camera. But you're always under surveillance here or under, a camera. Um, we do crazy stuff like go to the ATMs in the middle of the night or in the mornings or, things I wouldn't even do in Atlanta, right? Just, go for a run when it's still dark outside, things of that nature. And we don't think twice about it here um, because it is so safe. There's a huge police force here as well. I forgot what the number is, but it's like one police officer for every 100 people. So there's a
Wow.
huge police force here, and the person that is in charge of the police, the state police, he has been in charge for now, I think, 20 years or so.
Wow.
And he has a national reputation as being, super proactive, I guess. So like our cops actually patrol the streets. So we have a cop that drives this neighborhood, and that's his beat. And he drive, and they're multiple. They drive the streets. They see what's going on. They know who's there. When I moved from one house to the other, I stopped the guy and I was like, "Hey, just let you know we're moving today. So you see all this stuff getting loaded in the truck. It's okay. We're moving, right?" And he was like, "Oh, I'll let everybody know." So the police here are actually helpful. They'll change your tire. They'll jump your car. They will actually help
Oh.
you. Where it's very different than the relationship we've had with police. Some of us, the relationship some of us have had, with the fear and things of that nature. One of the things that's very triggering for a lot of people is they ride around with their lights on, even during the day. That's just normal, right? And so a cop may pull up behind you with his lights on, and you're thinking, oh my God, it sends all that fear that we have, but that's just how they ride around. They ride around with their lights on. And what's really funny to see is the relationship that the people that are from here have with the police. It's very different than like the relationship we have with the police. I wave, I speak, just a different level. So it's really interesting to see it when it plays out. It's like, what? They just did what?
That's crazy, especially coming from the States. And, there's a lot of fear mongering about when you go other places. Like I moved to Panama, single, no one, I walked the streets. I never took the trains and the buses in Cali or Texas, but in Panama, that was my main, means of transportation. So yeah, it's crazy how the messaging in the States, when you're in the States, is like, oh, people are like, it's safe. Are you sure you're going alone? And it's like, man, I'm more safe walking in Panama City at night than I am daytime in like the Houston area or in, San Francisco.
Yeah. The thing that I tell people all the time is, just ask yourself, when have you seen a positive story about Mexico anywhere in the media? Ever, right? You don't, so that should be a clue that, okay, something's not right and people are moving there.
Oh, you guys, this guy, I barely know him, but I feel like I know him. Like as soon as I started watching his channel, I was like, I like him. And I knew I had to bring him on the channel for you guys. So really quick, can you tell us about Mexiplans?
My website is mexitplans.com. So it's super easy to find. And the way I even came about the name Mexiplans is I'm out. I'm exiting. As you can see, my tagline, if you watch any of my videos, Mexiplans Monte, I'm out, right? So it's, it is, it started when we first made our appointment it started as a blog, but it started when the very first post it was about making our appointment at the Atlanta consulate to get our visas and what that process looks like and all that. So from the very beginning, I've been documenting every aspect of what it takes to move. A few years ago, probably 3 or 4 years ago now, I sat down for 4 months and I created a curriculum called the Mexiplans course. And for a while, that curriculum was a full-fledged course of 65 private videos that covered every aspect of moving to Mexico from, your motivation all the way to 6 months after you live here. So it covered a 2-year time span of the things that you needed to do in order to make a successful transition. Well, that's now transitioned into coaching. So I use that curriculum to talk to people about, healthcare. You asked me about healthcare, and that's a very big difference between the U.S. and here. Mexico is a pay for service type of thing. They take your money first, then they treat you, right? And so it's not, if you come here with Cigna, Aetna, Blue Cross Blue Shield, they're going to ask you for a credit card. Show me Amex, Visa, if you want to be treated. And that's something people should understand, is that you have to have healthcare. There's been countless stories. A few years ago, there was a story about a guy who came on a cruise ship, and Tyler Perry had to pay off his medical debt in order to get him back out of here. So it is definitely, when you talk about healthcare, now healthcare is super affordable. Most of what we do for healthcare is paid out of pocket. I have health insurance, but it is for major emergencies, accidents, hospitalizations, things of that nature. And again, that's super affordable. For my family, it is, I think right now, family of 3, we're looking at about $4,000 or $5,000 for the year for that major healthcare insurance. So it's super affordable.
That's crazy, insane. Yeah. Like we talk about, like healthcare in the States is just a scam.
It's absolutely broken.
It's highway robbery.
All of your pharmacy stuff, you just go to the pharmacy and you get the medicines you need them. If it's not a narcotic or antibiotic, you can get anything you need at the pharmacy, and you just pay out of pocket. Like you're not paying for, you're not paying these absorbent costs for whatever, right? So yeah, it's a big difference. But Mexiplans, I offer coaching on how to move to Mexico from A to Z. So if you have questions that you need to get direct answers to, or find contacts that can, help you with a particular part of that process, that's just a coaching session. And so you can find how to book that on my website. Also, I offer, the big part is financial, right? And one of the largest challenges, my background is cybersecurity. So So before this, I did cybersecurity. And one of the largest challenges people have is figuring out how to take their remote job and work on the road. And so if you have a remote lifestyle, I help people keep their location information private. And you can find that information on my website as well.
Okay. Yes. I mean, I feel like I can ask questions all day long, but watching your channel, you have a lot of information out there. So you guys, if you're got Mexico on your radar, you're going to want to subscribe to his channel, Mexiplans Monte on YouTube, and I'll drop the information in the description below. Oh, wait. So I'm a single heterosexual expat girl. And one of the things you discussed was when you first came, like finding males that were also expats or immigrants. Are there a lot of single male immigrants there too?
No. So most of the brothers that are here, there are a lot of brothers here, but most of them are married with families. So that has been a consistent theme. There are very few single men and single Black men in this part. And just to give you some idea about the population here, I mean, there's 1.2 million people in Merida. There's only about 16,000 immigrants, and that's across all United States, Canada. That's everybody, right? And not just the Black expats. There's probably in Merida, this is the largest Black expat community, I think, of people that live here in Mexico. But there's probably less than 1,000 of us, even that, I would say, and that's counting kids and everything. So, the population that's been a challenge for a lot of ladies that, if you're looking to date a brother, this is probably not the place to find them. There are a lot of transient folks in Cancun and Playa that kind of blow through, but I know a brother that was here. He was single, older dude, around my age, and he left to go to Panama. So
nice, yeah. Panama was like that too.
Yeah, it's the same on both ends.
Yeah, tons of single women immigrants, but not as many of the males. Yeah, I have no problem. Like, I speak Spanish pretty well enough to get around. So I do a little dating and stuff, just mostly local. So I do enjoy the cultural, diversion or whatever.
I would definitely tell you that Mexican men love Black women.
So I have no problem, right?
You won't have if your boundaries are not set to Black men from the U.S., then the gamut is wide open.
That's what's up. So, okay, you guys, I won't keep you too long, Monte. Just last minute advice, like you said, for people like me, like anything that we should plan for.
The financial requirements are the toughest part, right? If you plan to live here long term, just kind of make sure your finances are in straight. And, if you have a remote job, it helps to have that remote job now versus trying to find one. You're not going to be able to move here and find a job, right? Nor would you probably want to work there. So the ideal situation is to earn, dollars and spend in other currencies in most places. So you want to have that remote opportunity wherever you are, or create your own opportunity. Use your life skills that you have, that you honed all of this time to create an opportunity for yourself. So that's my recommendation, but it starts with the financial aspect. That's what allows you to be able to move abroad and to do everything else.
That's what's up. Well, I'll let you go if you promise that you'll come back on the channel and talk to us a little bit more about some other aspects of Mexico life.
Sure. Yeah, I would love to know. You guys leave comments and below and let us know what you think, what questions that you have, and of course we can reconvene and answer those questions for you.
Yes, you guys, check the description. I'll drop all of the videos. He also referenced his channel, his website, and thanks for coming in with me today and taking time to talk to us. I'm excited, and hopefully we'll have an in-person interview once I start roaming around Mexico.
Sounds great.
Okay, you guys. Deuces.